Hey, this is Notser, and today's video we're going to be discussing an article that Wargaming posted that details the tech tree changes, the upgrades, and commander skills that they intend to introduce for the aircraft carrier rework. This is also to highlight the fact that it's going up for round 3 testing, and we can all appreciate round 3 testing. What awaits responsiveness of aircraft management, clarity of the interface, and mechanics. Okay, so whatever that means. In the first 2 sessions, we've got this action-oriented expression, and they've been slightly altering, slightly tweaking, refining the presentation. And one of the things that they're tweaking is the tech tree. So here is the proposed rework carrier when the rework goes live. This is what the tech tree will look like. So for the Japanese, you can see that there's only aircraft carriers on the even tier. They've taken out 50% of the aircraft carriers. For the Americans, the exact same thing has occurred. Now the Ranger has moved from tier 7 to tier 6, but all in all, it's the exact same experience. And the reason they're doing this is for a couple things. Firstly, they feel like the matchmaker will benefit. Because they're limiting the number of tiers available, it should allow for a more concentrated, quicker queue for those of you trying to queue in with aircraft carriers. Now, I don't disagree with this idea. Obviously, it's true. If you limit the queue potential to one single tier, well, if everyone's queuing up at that tier, it's going to be really easy to get in a queue. But taking away 50% of your options while playing is a little disappointing. So there's got to be more reason than just alleviating some queue concerns, because I don't really feel that any of the classes have a queue concern outside of the aircraft carrier, and that's because the current design is just not good. It has a lot of bugs, balances, and all that stuff. Progression between carriers will be better. Many significant parameters of air groups were notably affected. And they sort of made it feel like the tier was irrelevant. They couldn't change the power level at all. The most notable thing is the American aircraft carrier. For probably like 3 or 4 tiers, you had to have 3 squadrons. That's all you could ever have. That's all you ever would have. And that was very noticeable. They couldn't really increase the power that much. I mean, yes, they could change out the aircraft carrier performance and the aircraft itself. Larger inventory, but in this world where it's infinite, it doesn't matter, you know? The gameplay apparently is going to become more clear, whatever that means. The progression between the carriers will also mean more clarity for a carrier's teammate and opponents. Mentioned differences in the air group parameters will be more pronounced. So, they were talking about tier 4 having 2 air groups, or two aircraft on attack, the actual attack run itself. And then tier 6, you have 3 aircraft on the actual attack run. Tier 8, 4, tier 10, 5. That feels great, but I don't know that that actually applies to every single air group. It felt like some air groups didn't have that kind of customization when I was playing it. Maybe that's where they're moving to, but that's not what I had interpreted when I was playing it. We'll see whenever this Test 3 goes live exactly how, refined it is. So the plan is they don't want to scrap the odd tier aircraft carriers. And if they're not going to scrap them, well, what else could they do? Well, they could sell them for premium. Probably not a popular choice. They could also, and this is the decision they've made, they can make another aircraft carrier line, an alternative aircraft carrier line, if you will. And this aircraft carrier line might have less damage output, but better spotting potential. Maybe it could set smokescreen, or it has the ability to save heavily damaged ships from destruction more than the main line. I don't know how this actually works. They still describe that they should be able to still do damage, but they should also have more tools. And if we're going to be completely honest, some of these tools might be too powerful. Like, how easy is a smokescreen to deploy? That could be the reverse of what we currently have right now, where an aircraft carrier has the ability to pinpoint precision, deny line of sight to certain targets. It's almost as action required as the ability to scout freely with 7 or 8 squadrons. So we got to be very careful what you want to potentially do. I saw people suggesting, what if it's just a squadron that focuses more on area denial, more a defensive aircraft carrier. Maybe it has more fighters that it can put up that are sort of on deploy and patrolling to prevent the enemy aircraft carrier from attacking. That might be too much in the other way, right? That might discourage play at all, and the alternative branch would be the successor. And another comment, why not simply shift all aircraft carrier to even tiers and release 2 branches immediately? In this case, it would just be the identical gameplay. And they don't want it to be identical gameplay for an alternative dedicated branch. And I completely agree. That would be really dumb. And here's an example of what we can expect from the proposed alternative aircraft carrier branch. You'll note that the Independence is at tier 6 in the alternative branch. There is the Yorktown, which we haven't had the Yorktown in the game, at tier 8, so that's good. And the Essex goes to tier 10. For the Japanese, Zuiho, Hiru, and Taiho, those are the ones that move to the alternative branch. It looks very weird, and as a player, this sort of break in the tier is very noticeable from a grind aspect. Now, I don't know if it'll be noticeable for the aircraft carrier, because your only competition is AA and another enemy aircraft carrier. But whenever I was playing in alpha and closed beta, the Japanese line did not have the Izuma. It did not have the Furutaka. Both of those tiers, it was just you play the Amagi twice as much, you play the Kuma twice as much, and then you get the Alba. It felt like I was on the same ship for a really long time, like annoyingly long. Imagine if you're stuck on a ship and it's not fun, and you have to do it double the grind. That's where it really is annoying. I don't know if Wargaming would be willing to adjust the XP gain for the carriers themselves, so it's not super annoying, but that's something that was really apparent in closed beta and alpha, where they had gaps in the tree, and when you reach that gap, boy, did it take a long time to get through, and it was sped up too. So it's going to feel like you're on the same tier for a very long time. On top of all that, they're changing a bunch of modules. So the AA gun module that currently extends the AA gun mount, I use this extensively on my American heavy cruisers and my American battleships. It's just going to increase the AA effectiveness, aka the DPS of long, medium, and short range AA. The slot 6 one, the one that increases the AA DPS, average AA damage, it's going to increase the number of AA explosions at long and medium range. So just think about this as like better AoE grouping. Whenever the enemy has to fly through the flak, they take extensive damage. And I don't know, what's the number of AA explosions? Does it double? Is it a third? Is it one more over the entire course of a game? I have to investigate that. But I do like the idea, and this does offer uniqueness that would encourage me to take both. Before, I really didn't feel like I wanted to take both. For squadron upgrades, they are completely different. The Air Groups Mod 1 that increased the effectiveness of aircraft guns, it's now increasing the speed of aircraft when they're returning to carrier, which it feels kind of irrelevant for me personally, but maybe if they're encouraging you to be in the squadron and then out of the squadron quickly, it would be something that you would be looking for. This would have a positive impact on the ability to control the aircraft carrier more directly. They sort of don't want you to control it more directly, and I'll get into that later. But this might help that. Flight Control Mod 1. Now this was in slot 3. It accelerates the aircraft carrier servicing. In the post rework, it will reduce the aircraft carrier prep time and increase the maximum number of aircraft. Maximum number of aircraft in a squadron. Maximum number of aircraft available to rearm. I think it's a squadron thing, but I'm not 100%. And I don't think this will influence the number of aircraft on the attack run. Air Groups Mod 2, this increased the fighter... Oh, and by the way, there's a lot of font, a lot of misspellings. Increases the fighter hit point and ammunition. So this is really good if you're an anti-air group. And it's being replaced with 3 new upgrades. So Air Groups Mod 2 is just gone with the rework. You get an attack aircraft, increases the hit point of your rocket attack aircraft. Torpedo bomber increases the hit point of your torpedo bomber hit point. Dive bomber modification increases the dive bomber hit point. It's interesting that the mod is very specific in what it buffs, and yet the playstyle sort of encourages you to use all different squadrons. I don't know how I feel about this one in particular. It feels like if I increase the hit points on my dive bomb, well then I'm just going to spam my dive bomb over and over and over. And I'm going to do everything I can to exploit that and, shrink the time it takes to rearm and increase the time that I'm over my target and doing maximum damage. So I could see that causing players to go to the other extreme, and that's a concern. In the slot 4, aircraft engine mod, it never existed. It boosts the aircraft carrier's boost time of the aircraft, sorry. Torpedo bombers mod 2 never existed. Increases the attack time of torpedo bombers. So this is the time that it takes for the attack run to, set up. I don't know that you need to do this because torpedo bomber attack run was incredibly long, but maybe that was with this baked in. Don't know. Same thing for the attack aircraft mod. Increases the attack time of your rocketing. Concealment modification. Before it only increased the ship concealment. Now it's going to increase the plane concealment as well. So it makes it even more valuable. Of course you're going to take this. Flight control mod 2. This one increased the aircraft carrier speed, or the aircraft speed itself. There's no changes. Staying the same. Air Groups mod 2. It was Air Groups modification 2, formerly. And formerly the exact same name, really. Regardless, it increased the attack aircraft hit points, so the torpedo and the dive bombers previously. And in the new version, it increases the hit point of all aircraft. So that's pretty cool. So you have to choose between speed or hit points, and I like that because that is a real choice. The unique upgrades, work in progress, is going forward. Obviously, there will be more tier 10s. Eventually, with the alternative aircraft carrier branch. They're working on it. It's impossible to install them on the carriers, and for some time they'll be frozen, apparently. So that's interesting, that they are choosing to just block it out and not allow those legendary unique modifications to exist until they've reworked them, which I think that's fair. For commander skills, priority target. It will apply to the aircraft itself, and it'll tell you how many enemy ships are firing their AA defense at you. Improved boost. Used to be dogfighting expert. It increases the boost work time for squadrons, which is nice. Aviation armor. It used to be aircraft servicing expert. This one reduces the incoming damage caused to aircraft from ships' short-range AA defense. The evasive maneuver is now final push, or will be, and it'll fully restore the boost of an aircraft carrier's last strike unit. So when your squadron is attacking multiple times, when you get down to the final grouping, it will automatically have your boost fully restored without using a consumable or anything like that. Adrenaline rush. It will increase the speed of planes as the plane's health decreases. That's a very interesting relationship. Improved engines, which used to be expert rear gunner. It's going to increase the speed of the plane. So you can see there's a lot of speed increases that they apparently are introducing into the game for aircraft. It might cause the aircraft carrier to be very quick and elusive to get out on the map. Maybe you could use the speed to your advantage to scout as well. Demolition expert, they're changing it to just increase the chance of setting an enemy ship on fire. Not very specific. Survivability expert. It will now affect the hit points of aircraft carrier planes and the new catapult fighter. And the new catapult fighter, it's going to be sort of a fighter group that acts like the rework carrier fighters. You sort of put it up, it denies the area, and it'll be indicated on the map. And when an enemy aircraft carrier flies in the area, oh, they are in trouble. It wipes them out very quickly. So choosing a catapult fighter might be something for anyone trying to deny success for the enemy aircraft carrier. Air supremacy. And we have air supremacy at tier 4. Why is there a tier 3? Why would they use that same name? It's so confusing. This is replacing emergency takeoff, accelerates the recovery time of planes, and increases the maximum number of planes on deck. It seems like a weird change to me. Don't really know. Vigilance doesn't work anymore for CV planes because apparently aircraft carrier planes can no longer spot torpedoes. What a massive change. Superintendent doesn't work for aircraft carrier planes, even though aircraft carrier planes have consumables. This is going to be, needs to be communicated, Wargaming, because it is confusing. Concealment expert. It now works for CV planes. So we've already talked about this. This is the 10% global and then 10% on the aircraft carrier planes themselves. It's a nice change. See if it, maintains that or they change it again. Site stabilization. This is replacing air supremacy. It reduces the time to focus on a target when performing air attacks on ships. So maybe this reduces the time that the aim occurs. That aim time for the torpedoes to dive or the rockets, maybe they aim quicker and you can use it faster. That might be something that's very, very important to get aircraft carriers in and out quickly. Radiolocation. It now works on CV planes. And holy crap, radiolocation working on aircraft carrier planes? That's insane. You could literally fly 3 times the speed towards the radiolocated target and keep them spotted until your teammates come back. That kind of seems like it's easily exploitable, and I don't really know if I want radiolocation usable on the aircraft themselves, considering the speed. There's so many things that increase speed already. But maybe that's their way of introducing alternative ways to play. So I'm very curious. Can I do tons of damage and also have tons of utility, or do I have to make that sacrifice? That's really where we need to see how the balancing is. So other changes that are influencing the effectiveness of AA, the direction center for catapult aircraft. When you activate the consumable catapult fighter, you launch an additional aircraft. It reduces the time to launch fighters, and it's no longer valid for the spotting aircraft, and it's only usable for the catapult fighter. This just kills a lot of the use case for this outside of aircraft carriers. I don't know that introducing a only, specific skill just for aircraft carrier gameplay, encountering it, is as healthy as making it more useful in more situations. So I don't really know about that one. Basic firing training. It's just improving the AA of your close range aim. It's just all changing the way that the AA skill benefits them. It's still just benefiting them. Increasing the performance of the AA guns. Manual fire control. Manual fire control is going away. Instead, it's increasing the efficiency of priority AA sectors. You can set sectors for higher AA damage and lower damage on the back end, so you have more focus on your port or your starboard. Signals, just changing it so it also affects the long, medium, and short range flak. Repair party consumable. There's a repair party consumable for aircraft, so it would make sense that they would also include that into this signal flag. We've got compensation, experience, all that stuff. It's not as much as I would have hoped, because I don't get real money back for the premiums. I get the value in doubloons, I believe. And then for the main line itself, the odd tiers all the XP is going to transfer to the tier below. So all the XP that I gained on my tier 9 is going to go to my tier 8, and my tier 7 is going to go to my tier 6. And every module that I researched is going to be turned into free XP. The difference between the old and the new, whatever that happens to be, I'm going to guess that the XP difference is going to be almost exactly the same, so you won't see a lot of net increase in the XP you have. Just as I described before, that sort of that gap in the tier is a very long grind. Very long grind. And because of that, you just feel like you're there forever. And they're not going to just have this change only have 4 aircraft carriers and not double the XP required to move from tier 4 to tier 6, tier 6 to tier 8, tier 8 to tier 10. Don't expect it to happen faster. That's all I'm saying. But, you know, what they're suggesting is they are putting a main line first. They develop that gameplay. Each tier is going to be a noticeable increase in power in the squadron. There's a bunch of modules to offer more options. Do you want to be fast? Do you want to have lots of hit points? Do you want to have faster accuracy? All of that's really interesting, and it creates way more choices for the player, especially in the aircraft carrier realm, and I love that. I always felt like the modules themselves were really disappointing for the aircraft carrier, so it's great that they're doing that. And then, of course, the commander are going to be reset. And look at what they've said here. All aircraft carrier commanders will have their carrier skills reset. Note this, all aircraft carrier commanders. So do you know what that means to me? That suggests that they're focusing only on the carrier concern right now. They are not even, you know, committing to a full global reset for all the commander skills. And that's a concern, Wargaming. My concern is that aircraft carriers are going to be a very important part of the game, hopefully. And everyone has AA. Everyone is going through this AA experience. Why wouldn't you then already realize that every single commander needs to be reset? I see a lot of people who, you know, oh, well, they don't need to do anything here. It's just fine. Is it fine? Because on certain servers like North America, where we have almost non-existent aircraft, we have committed to not speccing into carrier skills, and we will absolutely have to do that with a rework if it increases the popularity of the class, and yet we don't have a commitment, even though we've discussed in detail a ton of the AA changes. That's a concern to me. Wargaming, I feel like you need to commit. If you're doing this, carrier, you need to already commit to a full commander reset for everyone. Because we have no idea what the world's going to look like with the carrier rework. It might require that every single person has to consider an aircraft in their match. And if they do, that's going to change your build. So I would really like Wargaming to clarify that, yes, indeed, 100% they will be reset. And if they're not willing to do that, well, then I don't think that they really respect how important these changes are. Because on one hand, it's so extensive that they're probably pumping a ton of money in it, but they want to have their cake and eat it too. That's what it feels like. They want us to have to accept that our commander is going to be less than optimal and almost force us into respecking when all the carrier stuff comes out. Maybe I'm misinterpreting it, but I just don't know why you wouldn't have a bullet point that basically says, with all the AA changes, you're also getting a carrier, a commander rework. Reset. That's the one concern. But overall, I like that they're reusing the aircraft carriers from previously. It'll be a while. I'm curious to see what unique gameplay they can offer for the alternative branch. I'm still not set on the carrier rework working 100% the way they design. It's very clear that the carrier is not a focus, and yet it is very easy to attack. So it's going to force you to play defense, or you'll have to return frequently to your aircraft carrier by dropping your squadron completely in order to defend it. So that's a real concern still. I don't know that there's enough there from a control standpoint to feel like I'm not just dumping my ability to influence the game just to defend myself from constant barrage. Carrier sniping is still such a massive problem, and I don't think this addresses it at all. I think carrier sniping is just going to be a part of their system, and I don't know that they're going to give it enough respect until it's actually out. And if you're dealing with a class that has a particular focus from the enemy to the point where they just want to snipe you, it's not going to be a fun experience for new, old players, everyone in between. So I'm very curious to test the changes. I do like the direction of the modules, the signal flags, most of the commander skills. I really am curious to see them in action actually being played. But that's the carrier so far. A lot of big changes, a lot of interesting changes, but I feel like certain decisions are still a little short. And that's what I want to be addressed. Hopefully the gameplay is interesting. I don't think it's going to change all that much. I just wanted to talk through all of these suggested adjustments and give my thoughts on it. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you next time.